I was up in Florida. So
What part? Was it at the Orange? Was it at a
I was at
convention
the
center?
Hilton in downtown, the DoubleTree Hilton in downtown Orlando.
Orlando.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Orlando. So yeah, about
Did you did you hang around? Did you go anywhere
yeah, fam. I
fun?
went to the lobby bar where we were all hanging out, talking and stuff. And then after we went out for dinner for a nice place called Chez News or something, a French restaurant, and that was kind of cool as well. We stay local, and it was a quick trip in and out. I missed my morning flight, fam. I never do that, but I did. I missed my morning flight. It sucked. And I had to take a later flight. And the later flight had me going from from Florida to Chicago and then Chicago to Nevada. And it was just like, oh, Jesus, I got in late last night. So I'm a little tired today, but I'm going to work through it, fam, because right now, as we speak, this is like, if anybody watches the Convo Couch, and fam, on this event, I made a lot of new friends. And one of those friends I made, she was on this morning show, Laura Loomer. She was on that show. Now, if you don't know who Laura Loomer is, she's probably one of the most censored women out there. She ran in West Palm Beach. She got caught making a statement, or I don't want to say caught, but she made a statement about Muslims, I think. I don't know the exact statement, but TYT went crazy after her, called her a racist. She definitely is a Zionist. We've talked about
Oh
that. We
God.
had this, she's definitely a Zionist. We had disagreements about that. We talked about where foreign policy comes, because like I told you guys, like I get into these rooms, I get into these spaces. I'm speaking to people who might hold power. Mark Fincham was there. We had a long talk. We might have a special pickup show tomorrow, an election show. We're going to see. But this is a guy who's running for Secretary of State and is favored to win. And if he's the Secretary of State, maybe he runs for governor. If he runs for governor, maybe he runs for Congress. So I always, when we're done speaking elections, because we agree on elections and we just talk about the process and the framework, I talk foreign policy. And my question to all these people is this: what is the main cause of migration? And we get a little pause because we're used to talking about at the border. And then we have conversations, and their answers are always followed up by my answers saying, but what about the 81 bases in Latin America? What about the foreign policy that spends millions and millions of dollars, if not billions, collectively almost every single year to make sure that we have our puppet governments in there for resource extraction and to keep the monetary system in play? The same globalists that you guys talk about that are screwing us in the United States, those are the same ones down there. Doesn't that have an effect? And we get some good conversation that way. And fam, here's the thing. They allow me to have these conversations. We have nuanced conversations about it. We disagree, but then we agree on a lot of other things, not just elections. I talked about the WEF and we hit it off. We talked about a lot of the other things that we believe on, and there's a lot of commonality there. Freedom of press, freedom of speech. I said free Julian Assange on stage. So that's somebody who I met over the weekend as a good friend. And she's one of those names out there that people are like, oh, hell no. But I want to have these conversations with the people who I have differences with, because I think that a lot of people share Laura Loomer. They share that ideology when it comes to the border, foreign policy, and even what goes on in the Middle East and what goes on in Israel and Palestine. So to have those conversations for me, it's truly amazing, and I'm glad I get to have them. And I'm glad we do what we do, right? So it's pretty amazing. It was a pretty amazing weekend for me. And I got to speak to so many people, fam, about Brazil. I go to check in. Hey, how you doing? Oh, what's going on? And meet this person over here. Yeah, I just got back from. How was Brazil? Somebody said, yeah, I just got back. It was amazing and whatnot and stuff. And what'd you think about the election? Really good. I think tomorrow Lula's going to win, and it's not going to be a cakewalk. And it's fam, everything we said, there's going to be a second round. This isn't going to be a cakewalk, right? This is going to, people better have answers and better be ready. And I just want to say that the team sports mentalities, the left and the right, fam, has been driving me crazy. It really has. There's got to be a lot of nuance to the conversation. We're about to have that. We're about to talk here. And I mostly align with you on this thought process after going to multiple countries in the global south, and I'll explain that as we go along. But I will play a little bit of devil's advocate. I think it is necessary to play. We'll get into that. But yeah, I mean, I told people about Brazil, And I told them that it was a fair process because the comment I heard from the person was, I guess rigging happens over there too. And I was just like, it wasn't rigged.
No.
We're trying to make comparisons to Trump's election. There's no comparison. Let's dive in.
Yeah, enough with the Trump comparisons. Like this is a completely different system. It's a completely different country. It's a completely different election. What's left and right there is totally, it's even that's different. Actually. So, right. So in the beginning, right, this Lula was actually behind, and that was expected, and we knew that was going to happen. People were like, "Oh, see, blah blah blah." No, we knew this was going to happen. Why? Because the Bolsonaro areas are counted first, and the Lula strongholds were going to be counted last. We knew that this was going to happen. It happened last time. It was going to happen again.
We say now, why? Your opinion, or
what?
Why do you think that is and stuff? I mean, we have to explain why. I think because a lot of people are. I just want to push back against the crowd of InfoWars that were like, "Oh, there's dumps coming for Lula." That is not true, and I just think it's because these areas that Bolsonaro's in are more affluent, more put together, more quick. Their results are more expedient. Whereas the poor areas, which are stripped of resources, we went to a polling spot in the favela, and they didn't have the workforce that the one we went into in Sao Paulo was at. So naturally, the Sao Paulo affluent areas and the areas that Jair Bolsonaro had were going to come in first. That's the reason he got out to the lead, and then Lula caught him.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, fam. Just thought it was important.
Yeah, no, I have like a little it wasn't rigged section.
Perfect.
So, okay, so basically it was about what, like 50%, 60%? It was like 60% when he started like getting a good lead, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't ever like good. Like, I mean, you can see it now. If we go to the actual website now, it's going to say something. The final count was about similar to this. And it was basically very, very, very close. Like we knew it was going to be close, but this is extremely close. And I think the reason it is that close is for a lot of people, this is like, it was like, you have a very divided country. I guess that's the only comparison you can make to the United States, is like, it's a very divided country, and people really bought into the whole Lula is a criminal thing, as if reality didn't happen. And that's, to me, that's just my major criticism of the crowd, is that tends to be the U.S. right and the U.S. I don't know. And I don't know, at the U.S. kind of populist, whatever, non-label mentality, right? Because they to them, the WEF is everything. They see a picture of Lula and it's like, oh my God, he's part of the WEF. He's this and that. And so it's like, from that aspect, I can see if you're sitting here and you watch whatever show that's like, yeah, Lula is bought by Soros and blah, blah, blah. And then you don't go into Brazil and you don't talk to the people who explain to you how Brazil has gone downhill since Bolsonaro took over. You don't see it, and we see it. We saw it. We were there, and we see like the degradation, the state of the country, the inflation, the poverty, everything that's been there. So we have a completely, we see why people would vote for Lula. And a lot of people actually went out in celebration last night. I'll add some pictures. And a lot of people were like, how could Bolsonaro lose? Look how many people came out to see him. Well, a lot of people came out to see Lula last night as well. So, okay. You have something here? It's a tweet?
Yeah, I do have a tweet, and it's what we were kind of talking about. And I think it's really important because and I put it was a tight race, but it is over, and Lula will become the president. Now, team sports needs to be parked aside, and two questions need to be answered. Number one, why did Lula win? Or just as important, why did the incumbent lose? And you were just talking about that because we went down there. We got to see what's going on. We got to see this civil and social unrest. We got to see a very poor country. We got to see mass homelessness on the street. We also had a lot of people who got their phones stolen because it's just that type of country right now. That didn't happen in any other country we went to out of the other 6 countries. We never felt that kind of pressure in Peru, in Lima, in Honduras, in Nicaragua, in Colombia. And Colombia did have a lot of homelessness, but nothing like what we saw here in Sao Paulo. It was really, really bad. So that's why Lula did win. But, why did Bolsonaro lose? He was no champion of the poor. And the groups that we talked to, the labor groups, right, which we'll get into as well, those 2 labor groups that we talked to said that Lula has pretty much has helped the favelas in the past. He's allocated food and resources, and he's protected our ownership, our land rights for agriculture. Whereas if Bolsonaro has done the opposite, he hasn't allocated money or food or help to the favelas. He's taken away agriculture and brought in multinational corporations, which alludes to the fact that Fam has said before, pick your type of globalism. Don't just put on one side where you see Lula, who, has had these connections to the banks and the World Economic Forum, just as Bolsonaro has. But from what I learned in Colombia, more than anything, Colombia, where it's really set in, it started to take hold in Honduras. These leaders of these countries have to work with these NGOs in their country, with the West in their country. So there's no way getting around it. Lula did have to work with these groups before, but look what he did for the poor people. Look what he did for poverty. There's a reason why he won 2 terms. And for the conservative media out here to spin it as like that one event that we saw, which was the Brazilian Independence Day, that Bolsonaro kind of had his rally with to make it look like he was having massive crowds. And then they show these little small events of Lula when Lula has brought out tons of people all the time. When you're there, you can sense it. Lula has a lot of support. It's not a Joe Biden situation. That is why, unfortunately, if you're a Bolsonaro person, which I understand when we get to the boop boop part and all that stuff, how you're upset. But like I said this before, more people die from starvation than they will from this thing. And that is why we have to accept the fact that Lula won. And Lula did win in a very close race. And Bolsonaro got a lot of votes, though, Fam. And this is unexpected. And I've heard people say before, and I've seen the attacks on Bolsonaro supporters, like attacks on the Trump supporters, that they're just a bunch of racist people and they're very selfish. I don't believe that. When I'm here in Vegas and I see people with a Brazil jersey on, I go up and I talk to them. They're mainly Bolsonaro supporters. A lot of MMA supporters supported Bolsonaro. I don't know enough about the policies and everything that were enacted, but I think it's more than just a bunch of racist people that have voted for Bolsonaro.
It's more. Yeah. But it is an element in Brazil. It absolutely is. And I think even more than it is in the United States, because Brazil has that in Latin America, the whole thing of colorism is a real thing. Like there were job applications before when they would literally tell people that they had to look good, that they had to look white. And this is throughout Latin America. So that is a thing. And that is something that is prevalent in Brazil. Now, is it everything? No, it's definitely not. But there is definitely a strong element of that. And absolutely. I think other
57 million people, Fam.
But it's not no, it's not everybody, Pasta. But I mean, these countries are like in ways sometimes more than the United States. It shows because
I believe that. Yeah,
it's within themselves. You have, and you could see this in Bolivia, right? You could see this in the coup plotters that were actually like literally doing like Hitler signs, and in blatant daylight. They were, and these people were close to Bolsonaro. I mean, the daughter of Agnes went to see and support Bolsonaro and his wife, and she was crying about her mom being in prison. This is like, those ties can't be ignored. Now, is it every single person that's a Bolsonarista going to be some sort of racist? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of people like the taxi drivers that we spoke to that really just bought into the propaganda of Lula being a criminal, and that bought into and then, there's also the I think the US media was actually very effective in this, that they pushed the whole Lula is a George Soros puppet and he's terrible. Like that, I think that was also a part of it as well. And that was, of course, pushed by the United States, which in a way makes me really suspect in terms of now that being weaponized to create regime change, because they co-opt everything, right? So yes, there obviously you should question ties to the WEF, but Bolsonaro had his own ties too. But it was just used on Lula in a way that was extremely like very much like regime change, like don't accept this, don't accept it, get the military involved. These people were calling for regime change. They were calling for the military to get involved.
Yeah.
So this is, again, this is why I'm suspect of people who are very reductionist and just say, oh my God, Lula has all these stuff, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, you need to look at everything else as well, like, and the reality. And, you know, when you said about countries have to work with these foundations, they don't have to if they have their shit together. If they, like Nicaragua, right, and Cuba, and Venezuela, and if they're,
you know, I mean,
if they're a revolutionary country that they have leaders and the people are ready, the people are on board with it. You could even say in Venezuela's case, not everybody was on board and they did it anyway. And look, and that landed them in a very precarious situation. But in terms of you know, more progressive or countries or governments that are coming in, like Xiomara Castro's government in Honduras, Gustavo Petro, there's no way, because these countries have already been either under U.S. control effectively with a NATO partnership via Colombia, or regime change in 2009 in Honduras. Like you said before, they're not gonna do that. They're gonna be very careful in how they act. And I remember when we were in Honduras, I was like, this is very milquetoast. Like, I'm not, you know, personally for me, it was. And personally for me, Lula is milquetoast. But it doesn't matter, because these people in Brazil aren't wanting communism, as a lot of the right is claiming. That this Lula's not a communist. You know, they keep saying, oh, Venezuela, we're going to turn into Venezuela. No, you're like worse than Venezuela. Literally, you have homeless encampments all over like everywhere. You have a high crime, high poverty, all of this in the time of Bolsonaro. I mean, this is like, it's just the whole, you know, the whole framing of it too. There's a huge difference between where Brazil's at and where the people of Brazil are at versus where the people of Cuba or Nicaragua or Bolivia are at. Okay. Like complete total difference.
Let me say this much. I don't believe that people vote against something as much as they believe, as I believe that they vote for something. In other words, the enthusiasm to go out and vote for something. And what I'm trying to say, and I'd like to go back and revisit, fam, and this is when I wish I spoke Portuguese, when you did the interview, the very first day, when my microphone went off with the Lula supporter, but then we did the interview with the two Bolsonaro people. And I believe when you get 57 million votes, when you got 49 point something percent, right? People were voting for something that Bolsonaro did. Bolsonaro had to do some type of good or something that really he gave some of the people there that they justified voting for him, right? I believe that when you have numbers like this, the math alone, and I don't know enough, but I'd like to revisit some of the things that people like Bolsonaro about. We obviously understand that, you know, he had his connections to the WEF, but then when he cursed the WHO, you know, he stood aside the African nations that said, we're not playing this game. And he was even like, I'm going to pull us out of the WHO if you change one rule. So I think people did like that, but I think there's something else there. I don't know enough about Brazil, and I don't know enough people who would give me that information. But I do believe when you get those numbers, especially when you have almost 120 million people voting, you had to have done something good.
I could agree with you, but at the same time, based on the things they were saying, it seemed to me like a lot of propaganda against Lula. Like their whole, it wasn't even about Bolsonaro. They kept bringing up Lula's a criminal, Lula's a criminal, Lula's a criminal the entire time.
That was confirmation bias for me. No, like sometimes it was like, that's confirmation bias. What do you like about this dude that you're believing all these charges that have already been said to be dropped and false anyways? I don't know.
The other thing I heard from Bolsonaro supporters though was that Bolsonaro was and this is very similar to how Peruvians think. He had presence, he was putting Brazil on the map. It was very just broad generic stuff. It wasn't like they never even mentioned the vaccine really until we specifically asked about it. That was not the first thing they mentioned at all. So it wasn't even that. It was the only people that are mentioning the web stuff, most of them is literally like people in the United States. But in Brazil, when we asked about why they like Bolsonaro, they said, oh, he's a great leader. Like really broad stuff. Like it was not. So I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you can get a lot of those votes based on an illusion and an image that you create in a country that really was, like went in that direction because of let's be real, US intervention, right? And we can go on to that too, because that's my pushback is like a lot of people are saying Lula is this guy that is, well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But
yeah. One in the doc. Do you want me to go to a different one or is that good?
Yeah, no. We can just go. Yeah, this is about the election. So I just want to wrap up that part. Because
I didn't want to break your chain of thought. I thought you were telling me to go to that. I'm sorry, huh? Hoo-ah! Wow. I don't know, fam. Like I said, when you get that many votes, I believe that and it was broad. It was interesting when we did talk to a lot of the cab drivers and everything. Like, hey, Lula's a criminal, and they even excuse and I hated the politicizing of the COVID-19 protocols and everything and trying to put that on Bolsonaro's shoulders when Brazil has the same situation we have in the United States where it was just politicized by the mainstream media on the left by putting up a death clock and all that stuff and acting like Donald Trump could have done something wave his wand. When you have governors, same thing over there, and then you have big pharma, same thing over there. So I hate the way that was politicized by a lot of the independent left media about Bolsonaro mishandling the COVID-19. If Bolsonaro had his way, it would have been handled totally different, but he couldn't do anything. And this is from speaking to doctors in Brazil. It's like, he says nothing's going to change if the power changes over there. You know what I'm saying? There's stuff that might change coming forth, and that's something that we have to look forward to, but not look forward to, but keep looking for in the future. That might be a little bit alarming, but we'll see. Do you want to get to this next part here?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just being
it's okay.
Contacted by RT. I have to go into the office. But
I gotta get my phone real quick because I'm supposed to go on the Hill tomorrow. And they're supposed to give me a time. So I'll be able to go talk elections on the Hill. I'm going to just read this for fam while she's texting somebody. In the major win for Bolsonaro and a loss for PT, the pro-Bolsonaro candidate for Sao Paulo government, Tarcísio defeats PT's 2018 losing presidential candidate, Haddad Fernando. Bolsonaro's party will be the largest in both houses of Congress and control governorships of Sao Paulo and Rio. Now, fam, this is very, very true. But there have been a lot of PT candidates to also win seats. That I think is being ignored too, right? You there?
Okay, yeah. So this is the I believe the governor, right? That's the position. Yeah. So it is the most right-wing government right now that Brazil has had. Like all of these people are from Bolsonaro's party. So Lula's going to be alone. He basically in a situation where he's got to work with these people that are completely opposed to him. And that's not a good situation to be in because we've seen what happens with Castillo, right? Where Castillo has that essentially. And he's literally not able to do anything. And that's my biggest fear is if Lula gets stuck and he's not able to do anything, which basically what has to happen is the social movements have to really jump on board. And I do think that they're going to do that because they have organized themselves in that way to be more effective and demanding. And when the government isn't working for them, they kind of force the government. They've created a parallel structure to do that we don't have here in the United States.
So, fam, we're getting texts over here. I'm going to be on the Hill tomorrow talking about elections, about the Brazil elections. So that will be fun tomorrow. Hopefully, I won't make any comment to Brie about her raw dogging fucking tweet, but I will.
Oh, I did.
I know you did.
I'm never going to be invited on there, so I can say I'm especially being Russia State affiliated media.
I was a little upset by that one. I'm like, thank you for being my voice in this situation. Oh God. The joy. Guys, we have 32 people hanging out on Rumble and 35 on Rokfin. Rokfinners, let's share this out here. We don't want to get stumped by the Rumble people. Come and catch you. Over 200 right now, I think, on, I can't say, close to 200 on YouTube. Let's get that number up, guys. Say, I love you, everybody in the chat. Jelly Love, a Lucky Burrito over there moderating for us today. Thank you so much. You can tell me about the chatter later. We're gonna stick on message right now because this is some serious stuff we have to go over, fam. Because I've been waiting to go into this kind of stuff. I've been holding on my tongue about a lot of this things we're gonna go over because there is like a lot of hocus pocus when it comes to it, right? Like these things are things that we should pay attention to. I'm not happy when they are glossed over. Some of the issues I think that Lula has that we have to be very conscious of. However, I just wanted the people of Brazil to make the choice that they thought was best for them. And that's all I wanted more than anything. We got people like AOC here, fam. Lula.
Yeah.
Yay! Stupid. Just wanted to put that in there. So that's AOC with her little comments. And of course, she's going to try to, she's going to try to ride the coattails and whatnot and present this image and,
yeah,
it's popular for her brand to go and support Lula. So that's why she's doing what AOC does, being a complete idiot. You good?
Yeah. There's apparently Armenia and Azerbaijan might have a breaking news.
Oh, geez.
Truce. So,
a truce. That's great.
I think so. Yeah. Okay, so this is what I really wanted to push back against. Really. So you go ahead and break it down.
Okay,
and then
so I'm gonna give it a quick gloss over because you can spend a lot of time on this. But Lula's connections in the past, they are worrisome on certain situations. He has worked with a lot of Western influence, especially when it comes to banks, when it comes to World Economic Forum. We're going to kind of go over that really, really quickly, and then we'll explain the pushback because people say to me, how can you be hypocritical, Pasta? You are so against the big banks. You're against, foreign policy, regime change. There's also the Haiti situation, which we're going to touch on really quickly when it comes to Lula. How can you be okay with this? And it's like what I said, I learned in Colombia. You have to deal with the devil sitting at your dinner table. You have to find a way to deal with this. And not only that, what about the other side? And I'll let Fam speak for herself. But this article from Global Researcher says, Brazil, neoliberalism with a human face, Lula presidency, extended dollarization, subservient to the Washington consensus. And it just talks about the first round and then getting into the second round. But this is something I want to kind of point out over here. This is the sentence says a lot. While the progressives and leftist labels prevail, key political appointments had already been approved by Washington consensus. The de facto, it is a center-right rightist government with leftist characteristics. Fam, do you feel that way when it comes to that? Do you feel that it's a center-right government with leftist characteristics, or do you feel, or you want me to kind of go on and talk a little bit more about Henrique de Campos?
Okay, so first of all, the AOC and the Ilhan Omar and that stuff is happening because they literally are trying to co-opt Lula's government. Like they want to be friendly to Brazil. Brazil's a big economy. So I have to remind everybody, the Obama administration with Joe Biden as vice president were instrumental in putting Lula in prison, literally, and in getting Bolsonaro in there. The United States backed all of that. The United States completely backed all of that. So to say that he's the deep state's preferred candidate, I just don't buy that. I buy that they think that they can manipulate him and that they want to bring him in, because Bolsonaro even alienated some of the elite because he was so bad. He like, the economy just stunk. So when we're talking about what is Lula's government, yeah, Lula's government is not a socialist government. It's not a communist government. It's not even it's not even going to be as a democratic socialist type of government either. It was before, but now he has a centrist, center right VP,
Yeah.
and this is and so that is something that people need to understand. So now he's got to work with the centrists and the right. So it's just kind of like, it's
Yeah.
not going to pan out well.
Well, a
In
lot
those
of people
terms.
too, fam, are framing it as that this is his deal he's made with the West to have certain people in play. Like when Obama got elected and he became president, remember he was given a list of names who he can fire for his economic team from Citibank, right? So he
But
played.
what is that based on? What is that assertion based on, that he made this deal? Like, what is it based on? Because the way I see it is he got
I'll
those
tell you
people
why.
because he needed to win, and he wasn't going to win against a candidate like Bolsonaro, who has put himself as a populist, with anybody that was remotely left. Because the country, you've seen it, it's like Colombia and Peru. They're not ready for anything revolutionary of any sort. So if he picked somebody that was like a leftist, like, it wouldn't have served him well. They would have just completely said even more than they would have said. So I understand why he picked a centrist. I don't agree with it, but like, I understand the process in that aspect as to why he picked one.
I believe, just like I kind of believe in what happened in Honduras, what happened in Colombia, is that for any president, for anybody to become president, for any person to take power in there, they have to make some type of concessions into where the West won't coup them. Brazil has been couped how many times? How many times? And I believe that there's a sense of comfortability where the United States understands that they can't exert full, complete power there, that they have to also make some concessions, and they make concessions with the people who will make concessions with them. And I think Lula is a crafty, smart politician who made concessions with the West, who hired people in certain positions, who took loans from the IMF, but used money and allocated it to the poor. So I believe that that's where once again, do we have a lot of proof of this and whatnot? No, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but there are people who even said, like, it just seems very, very funny that they jailed Lula, but then they let him out, and then they let him out, and then he ran again. The whole situation, and now with the Biden administration praising Lula, Obama praised Lula in the past. I think we put the picture up, we talked about it, and they were also detrimental of putting him in jail, but. That's what I
Instrumental,
honestly
yeah.
I believe, that there's some form of deals working with the West, and I think it's very evident from how many times these countries get cooed, that if you don't play
Yeah,
ball,
of
we move you
course.
in the middle of the night. So I do believe there were some concessions that Lula made with the West, but also believing that how are you going to feed your people? How are you going to survive if you don't plug into the global economy? But just make sure that you
Are
give
you talking about concessions before, or for him? Are you saying he
beforehand.
won the election because? Okay,
No, I'm not
so
saying he
yeah, no,
won I'm not saying he won the election, but beforehand, he's making concessions now. I'm saying that he made concessions beforehand. That's why he picked some of these people who are close to the banks. That's why he picked that center right candidate. You know what I'm saying? His minister of finance.
oh, you're
That's
talking.
why I
Okay, so
believe
you're
at one
talking
point,
about
like the
before.
whole, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, right now, I mean,
yeah.
yes, people they said they're shoo-ins to be like the finance ministers and whatnot that are close with the banks of the past. So it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, well, I think, but again, it's also a matter of getting elected. And if all those candidates that were third or fourth party candidates didn't support him, he wouldn't have gotten elected.
Yeah.
So I think it's more pragmatic than conspiratorial at that point. But
Yeah.
that's just because I just don't see, like, I think the West thinks that they can control him, that they can go back to him, that they can like say, okay, you got to play ball, you got to do this, but this is where I'm going to push back. But Brazil's a BRICS country. Brazil's a BRICS country. They're not going to leave. Like they're not just going to say, fuck you, we're going to leave BRICS. BRICS is growing. BRICS has more of the population of the world than any of these Western alliances. And also, it's not just BRICS, it's every other alliance that is out there that is pretty much adversarial to the West that Lula has been involved in. And I'll go over some of the other stuff too. But
this is the connections from Washington, which a lot of people point to, and I'm Fiorella will point back the other side of it when we get to that part, because it is frustrating, you know, when you see people attack Lula, how it's just one-sided, right? Oh, he's the most popular politician on earth. I love this guy, says Barack Obama. He's a friend of George W. Bush's, and there's a picture of him and George Bush embracing. He helped us in America's peacekeeping initiatives. Lula not only failed to condemn the U.S.-sponsored February 28th, 2004 coup in Haiti against the duly elected and progressive president Aristide, his Workers' Party government ordered the dispatch of Brazilian troops to Haiti under the auspices, did I say it right? Auspices of the UN. Can you say that? Peacekeeping stabilization operation, unofficially on behalf of Washington. George Bush conveyed thanks to Lula, whose military participated in the peace mission initiative. I appreciate you very much, Lula, on Haiti, on your leadership on Haiti. I appreciate the fact that you've led the UN stabilization force, which is something we hear a lot of people complain about. If you go down to number four, will Lula remain friends with the IMF? In the words of former IMF's managing director, Henrik Kohler, I am deeply impressed by President Lula. Indeed, and in particular, I do think he's credible, which often other leaders lack. And that was way back in 2003. And to top it off, Lula is a firm supporter of Joe Biden. Biden is a breath for democracy in the world, said Lula. Neoliberalism with a human face is a convenient disguise. And that was the crux of the article, fam. So if you have anything to say about that, I mean, and these are the things that make me think that there are concessions made with the West. However, like I said, I believe Lula is a very crafty, smart leader. And even though he's made these deals, he's made sure that his people can eat. And that's why they want him back in power.
Yeah. So I'm surprised this Soros wasn't in that article, because this is all people say, but they never provide links. Soros is like the go-to, like, right-wing thing. Like Soros doesn't control everybody. Like it really doesn't work that way. Yeah. And you start really seeing things when you actually go to these countries and you see things are a lot more complex than they seem. So the Haiti thing is absolutely real. I think that's a stain on Lula's legacy. I think, it's bad that he did that. And he's not the only one, though. Brazil is not the only country. Literally pretty much everybody did the same thing, has done the same thing to Haiti. They've barely gotten any Latin American support from people in other countries in the Caribbean and Latin America. But I do think, like, foreign policy wise, Lula wasn't great. Like, I think domestic policy wise, though, he was for Brazil and for the working people of Brazil. And right now, that country, it really needs to get out of there and to really get out of where it's at. And I don't think Lula is some sort of revolutionary. I don't know how many times I have to say that. I do think he's pretty much like a
compromise candidate.
I think he's a compromise candidate. I think he's like a Bernie Sanders, in some ways, type of candidate. But definitely less of a warmonger than Bernie has turned into. And there's a couple of things I have to go over because this is important, and I have to hurry up because I have to go into fucking RT.
You gotta go to work? Okay.
So I have to hurry up.
I do wanted to have a talk about the elephant in the room, which is my biggest criticism and my thing I worry about most. And when I got to ask the campaign staff, they told me that Lula is definitely pro-vaccine, but he's anti-mandate. I still am not crazy about that. I still suspect, because of his history with vaccines, when H1N1, which he used to help his people when that particular vaccine was out there, he believed strongly in that. So I am going to be looking, and I listen. I understand that the people over there are more concerned about eating or having a roof over the head before they even talk about this. But if you still believe a narrative or a certain belief about it, you should still be able to say you have a right to stand up and say, well, that's the reason why I'm concerned about Lula becoming president, because of that reason.
If you lived in Brazil, yeah. But if you don't live in Brazil, I don't see how that's your concern. It's a fair criticism to have.
I don't want to say it because
if
I don't want to get thrown off YouTube, so I can't even expand on that.
But for me, I don't care if somebody's pro-vaccine, because everybody, like, literally, I don't think any major revolutionary government is anti-vaccine at this point in time. Not Nicaragua's government, not Cuba's, not Venezuela's, not Russia. Like, they're not mandating, but they're not anti. I think it's going to take a while for anybody in a position of power to be, because it's such a difficult thing for people to accept that I mean, I think they have suspicions. I think a lot of these countries, including China, have suspicions about bioweapons being used, but if I'm going to judge Lula and then ignore that on every other candidate, like every other leader, like Daniel Ortega, who's literally he didn't shut down the economy, but they're still Nicaragua was still promoting getting vaccinated. I would be a hypocrite.
They've informed consent too, as well. Nicaragua, you got complete informed consent if you got it over there, and they didn't have a lot of the crap anyway.
Brazil doesn't get informed consent.
I kind of
you don't know.
No, I asked. I said, what kind of informed consent do you give? I mean, are you really giving all the negatives of the vaccine? I don't know if she clearly understood that question, but she said no. I mean,
yeah. I don't know if she did, because I didn't even understand her question.
Yeah,
because I know
it was a tough one, and here's the thing too: there was a plethora of ivermectin. Oh, I should have said fuck that shit. In Nicaragua, you know what I'm saying? And to be fair, I don't think that any president in a lot of these countries can really control what happened for those last 2 years during the outbreak. It's really, really tough. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, how people didn't know.
Bolsonaro, he was probably one of the most vocal against it.
But for stupid reasons. He literally said it turns you into a freaking
alligator.
It just discredits. It discredits any sort of valid criticism you have when you say shit like that.
I get it.
It just makes so then I become somebody that's one of those people that thinks it turns you into an alligator.
Yeah.
So okay.
Talk about Operation Car Wash, because we have to talk about our country, our State Department worked with Brazil's executive branch and worked with the courts to get freaking Bolsonaro, to get Lula thrown in jail so he couldn't run again.
Yeah. So real quick, so Operation Car Wash was this investigation into this Brazil's federal police of Brazil's Curitiba branch, and it started in 2014. And it was investigated, the lead investigator was Judge Sergio Moro. And so basically, just if you scroll down a little bit, Pasta. Okay, scroll. Let me see if I can find it. I thought I had it exactly what I wanted, but I guess
investigation.
No. It's the part where he talks about Lula. They talk about. Basically, Lula was named as one of these people. If you just keep scrolling down, you'll probably find Lula. I think it's somewhere there. As one of the people involved, he was accused of receiving money, and the judge said that this was true. and then what happened was that obviously Glenn Greenwald exposed it. There was a leak,
Fam,
and
where am I going on this? I can't find it. I'm so sorry.
okay, well let me stop and I'll find it.
Here, however, documents leaked in June 2019 to Glenn Greenwald and the Intercept suggest that Judge Sergio Moro may have been partial in his decisions, passing on advice, investigative leads, and inside information to the prosecutors to prevent Lula's worker party from winning the 2018 elections. Several top jurisprudence authorities and experts in the world have reacted to the leaks by describing former President Lula as a political prisoner and calling for his release. Lula was ultimately released on November 8th. Wow. That's what our election is, November 8th, 2019. And Brazil's Supreme Court ruled Justice Moro was biased against Lula in March 2021. Lula went on to win the election again and as president in October of 2022.
So this is just updated. Okay, so
yeah, they updated it.
People have been, and the reason I went to Wikipedia is because it's easier. There are way better sources in Wikipedia, obviously. It was just easier for that part for everybody to see that part, particularly because, well, there's stupid people accusing Glenn Greenwald of supporting Bolsonaro, which he's never supported Bolsonaro, but he shared the same concerns about Lula and said things, this and that. So the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because the United States government was instrumental in that, right? The United States government was instrumental. It doesn't make sense to me that that this is happening just like all of a sudden they're like, oh, pro Lula. Lula himself has this Brazil is part of the BRICS country. Lula himself is saying he's going to do these things for the working people that he's already done. It's not like he's saying it and whatever. It's already happened. He already did it. During Lula's presidency, Brazil got out of the poverty index. Brazil's economy was doing far better. He left and shit went down the drain. And now we're obviously in this situation where this is, the reality for Brazil is really bad. Now, this is from WikiLeaks. And if you scroll down a little bit.
Well, I got this. I'm going to get more because I just took a picture of this really quick. Do you want to talk about this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this isn't even the main thing. This is just
God.
like...
Let me get on the thing then really quick. I'm going to just share the folder and I'll get right on it. 2 seconds, fam. You grabbed this from WikiLeaks? I couldn't even get to the stuff yesterday. I heard there's some other stuff from WikiLeaks on this thing.
Yeah, this is from WikiLeaks.
All right. 2 seconds. I'm so sorry. All right, fam. I got it right now. Here we go. So you want me to scroll down?
It's right here. I can just hold on. Go up. It's just this part right here. Okay. So this is a letter. This is an email from former President Lula da Silva defending Brazil's strengthening relationship with the Middle East as a way for Brazil to become less dependent on Europe and the United States. This is an email dated 3/5/15, March 15th of 2011. And if you scroll down, you can see it right there. It's Lula. And he said during a debate promoted by Al Jazeera yesterday, Lula defended, I think he defended it says defend approximate. I don't know what that means, but he was basically saying that the United States needs to strengthen its relationship with the Middle East in order to lose dependency on the West, including Europe and the United States. And this is, I think, where he says it. This is from this article, I believe. And it's all in Portuguese, so we don't have to read it. But if you look at the actual page, I don't know why it's showing like that. I don't know why it's cut off. It shows the conversation. It shows what was said. It's in Portuguese, so you won't understand it. But basically, he was saying that.
Yeah. It's not there. It's cut off there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, that's weird. Okay.
Next one.
Yeah, next one.
Okay. Guys, do us a favor. Hit that like button. Hit the share button. Hook us up. Help us out. We love you. What you got here, fam?
Okay, so can you click on the translate so people
Of
can
course I
see?
can.
Okay, so he based this tweet basically said Lula has won, the Workers' Party has won, Brazil of Hope has won, the Brazilian people have won, anti-fascism has won, but Mercosur, UNASUR, ALBA, TCP, CELAC have also won. BRICS, great challenges are coming to Brazil, Latin America, and the world. So this is very important. Hold on, this is very important. ALBA, CELAC, BRICS. These are the the organizations people need to look at when what's his name, Manuel Zelaya joined ALBA. He was couped.
Yeah, like
right after he joined it.
Very shortly after, just like gone.
And these are the organizations that are pushing relationships with Russia, China, a world where with everybody. They're pushing like this sort of multipolarity. Again, I go back to Brazil as a BRICS country. I just have a hard time thinking that somebody's just going to go and throw all of these relationships away. Lula has said he wants to open up the world with the Brazil's economy to everybody. He mentioned the United States, sure, but he also mentioned literally everybody else. And I just don't see, even if he was ideologically more pro-US, economic-wise, it would be a suicide mission to right now to just try to do whatever the US says. That's not the trend anymore. It's not. The trend is actually to open up your markets to everywhere else. And another thing that Lula has done is push for a currency for Latin America.
I gotcha. You can riff. I'll put it on.
So there's a lot of things that I think people aren't really looking at here when they just want to, stick that. And again, I can show you pictures of Bolsonaro as well on that. So yeah, so there it is. Lula proposes a Latin American currency to end US dollar dependency. You can see it right there. You can make it a little bigger. It says Lula's announcement of plans for SUR, a new Latin American currency for bilateral trade, has excited proponents of regional integration, will alarm Washington. The project, if successful, would mean twilight for U.S. dollar hegemony, and it has clear implications for the 2020 elections. Less than 6 months ahead of Brazil's most crucial election since the 1980s, the former president and current frontrunner, Workers' Party candidate Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has announced a plan for the creation of a single currency as part of a wider expansion of regional relations. Lula, who maintains a double-digit lead in polls, likely runoff against far-right incumbent Bolsonaro, gathered militants at the Electoral Congress of Coalition Allies PSOL that Brazil and Latin America as a whole don't have to depend on the dollar. Okay, so again, I don't understand how that is globalist, because this is he's a globalist. That doesn't seem very globalist to me. That doesn't seem very, and that's recent. That's literally 6 months ago. I'm not seeing how that's, and if the United States knows this, what I'm seeing the United States do is diplomatically try to get Lula on their side. They're trying to be like, oh, Lula, welcome. We love you. We're going to have great relationships with you. Now it's up to Lula and Brazil and the people of Brazil to decide where Brazil is going to go. And if they're smart and if they understand, their ties with BRICS and their ties and ALBA and what's going to happen with CELAC, then there's no reason for them to go this globalist route. And on the contrary, there's more of a reason for them to go towards the other route where they have multiple relationships with everybody, which is what I think Brazil said they were going to do. And Brazil needs grain from somebody. Brazil needs grain from somebody. And who's going to give them better rates in grain? Let's be real here.
What's this, fam?
So this is Lula, a supporter of Palestine. So Jair Bolsonaro's wife voted with a Israeli shirt. You saw that? Like she had like a Israeli flag t-shirt. Lula has been an ally to Palestinian. He has been pro-Palestinian and the whole time. So this is the West is very tied to Israel, right? We know this. This is where I don't get where some of these Republicans talk about globalism, and then they support Israel. Israel is literally like leading in that. This is where these sort of things don't make any sense to me. The Zionists are the globalists, like a lot of them. Like, and I'm not, and I'm saying that in terms of like the relationship to the West, the relationship to Europe. It's always pro-Israel. So that's a whole other thing I have there.
Yeah. So I think this is inaccurate. This next one right here, fam, whoever posted this, I think really needs to maybe get their
No, that's why.
Yeah,
that's why I'm posting it, because we're gonna debunk this right here. So somebody posted this, right? And I'm gonna show you
the declassified UK one.
No, which one's next? I thought you were talking about the Dominion.
I think declassified UK is next, right?
Oh, okay. Then yeah, that's accurate. Yeah. That's not, yeah.
Let me put that up though, because I want to make sure I stay in order. Go ahead, fam.
All right. So another thing, because people are painting Bolsonaro as this anti-globalist, and this is people in the US. I haven't heard very many Brazilians say that in Brazil. But so Bolsonaro has promised to sell off more state-owned companies if reelected this weekend. UK praised Bolsonaro's push on liberal economic reforms and drive to reform energy sector. It used strong links with Bolsonaro government to promote privatization, documents show. So the Declassified UK did an article pretty much breaking down how the relationship with the UK basically pretty much privatized much of Brazil for the benefit of the UK. So again,
pick your globalism.
This is,
pick your globalism. Right here, ladies and gentlemen.
Who's a U.S. ally? Who's the U.S. one of the U.S.'s biggest ally? It's the UK. So again, I have a hard time understanding this whole scenario. And it's not like Boris Johnson was an anti-establishment guy either. He was, you saw, he was pro-Ukraine, pro this, yeah. I just, people don't talk about this. So they act like Bolsonaro is some sort of like anti-establishment revolutionary, and it's just not the case. It's just not the case. I'm not saying Lula's a revolutionary. I'm simply saying this presentation is extremely, very, very like one-sided the way it's being presented. And you don't have to go to the article, fam, because we gotta get out of there. I gotta start. Well, we gotta start wrapping up.
Yeah, start wrapping up. But this is just interesting because we what happens when you go down to the actual fucking place where they're actually having the election. You actually go to that place and you report the news. You'll know that Dominion is not the company that's running their systems anymore.
Yeah. So this says when a company when a company logo says exactly, when a company's logo says exactly who they are, goes in and comes out, Dominion voting. And then they put a chart of Joe Biden's election stuff to Lula's and Bolsonaro's, right? And it's like, guys, could you stop making this comparison? It's just an inaccurate comparison. A completely different election system.
Completely different.
Not even a Dominion machine. You have, you have all these safeguards in Brazil. You have ID. you have the biometrics, you have, yes, it's an DVR, direct recording of
DRE.
voting recorded, DRE, I'm sorry, direct recording. What is it? DRE?
Direct recorded electronical device. So there is no paper. Once again, and I don't think it's safe to say, fam, right? Like, I don't think we'll 100% ever endorse a DRE system which doesn't have a paper trail, that you don't put anything in or you don't get anything out. But still,
it
the
has
cards are in place where
the tallies.
Exactly, where it's cast, it's counted. There's open source software. The other parties have every right to inspect everything. There's no way of getting around it. And the thing that we should point out most is Bolsonaro didn't complain when he won under the same system in 2018.
Yeah, he didn't complain.
He didn't complain one bit when he won into the system.
And it's not, and yes, there's not like a paper trail of every single vote, but there is a paper trail of the tallies of each area, which is what's used. So there is a small paper trail in terms of a tally, but not in terms of every individual vote. We don't have any of that. So, and also the way the voting happened with dumps, with like things in the middle of the night. Yeah, that happened in the United States where you have mail-in ballots. It didn't, and when you have like a month of voting, it can't happen in Brazil.
There's no
That's
ballot.
why their counting is so quick. There's no vote by mail ballots. There's literally no paper ballots. So how could they have dumps? And the system is extremely difficult to hack. It's open source. Somebody would have said something. So Bolsonaro's people would have said something if there was rigging in the election. So what this does, and this is why it makes me so mad, is it just completely, it just throws away a lot of the progress we make.
Yeah.
It's just in terms of understanding elections and how they work and election integrity, because now people are like, oh, you're just like, the Bolsonaros and the Trumpers. It's like, there's two completely different election systems here. It's not a one size fits all. And when you make these baseless accusations, these are baseless. Like, these are baseless. We know because we were there. It's not the same machine. It's just complete bogus, because Bolsonaro would have totally done something. If he had any sort of chance to say anything at all, he would have done it. Yeah. And it just completely messes up anything when we actually say, hey, this election, we need to look into it. This doesn't look good, because now it's like you're put into that category. And this map right here.
Good.
This map right here is just, I wanted, because they were saying how like these dumps and all of that, and how, oh, it doesn't match because Bolsonaro only got some support from somewhere, and Bolsonaro got support everywhere, and Lula only got some support in little places. It's like, no, you can see here, the Northeast region is the most pro Lula. And you can see also in the north up there of the country, the poorest regions right there. And then everywhere else near like Rio de Janeiro and even Sao Paulo, it's, not as hardcore for Lula. So you can see the map.
All right, fam. And also we got Kasachwan News right here. I'm just going to get this in really quick. They were dancing in the streets last night, fam.
Yeah, they were dancing, waiting for Lula. This is in Sao Paulo.
Did Biden have that support, fam? These
no, Biden
comparisons to Lula, and it's just so stupid. It's dumb at this point.
Yeah.
And do you have to go now, or can you do one last thing? Because this is by Lauren Smith over here, fam. I think this is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so our friend Lauren Smith, that's her code name. Such a code name. Oh, she wrote this great article, and she included some of our reporting. She included, Camilla Kasachwan News's reporting, Danny Shaw. She basically, read this article. We don't have time to go over it, but it basically outlines how who Bolsonaro is, who Lula is, why this wasn't rigged, how this came about. It's who we spoke to, who are the leaders we spoke to, how this, how everything was set up, what's going on in Brazil, what's happening.
There's that interview,
And
Sam.
yeah. And
There's Danny and Camilla. I'm going to put the link in the chats, guys, and you can go check this out because this is awesome.
It's a really good article. It's long, but it's good. She talks about BRICS here and how that's important. Actually, if you can. Oh, well, never mind.
Tell me, I'll go to. Oh,
no.
So now, guys, this right here, you can see a picture of this right now. That's the election room we went into with the election officials, the TRESP, right? So this is the court. So we went in there for about 40 minutes and we grilled them on everything about the elections. This is where you find out that, who's running things and how it works. And here is when we went into the favelas. And the difference in the vote centers over there compared to the difference in the vote centers in Sao Paulo, the more affluent Bolsonaro area, the area where Bolsonaro won every single room. Lula got close, but Bolsonaro won every single one of the rooms I went to. I got 14 results from 14 rooms. And those particular locations were way more efficient, had way more help, easy to get into, easy to get out to than when we went to the favelas. That it was still easy to vote, but it still took a little bit of time. There was a little bit longer lines. So that's why you're going to get the reporting later of the favelas and the Lula supporters as compared to the Bolsonaro getting the lead early and them trying to make this kind of same analogy. That would really piss me off, seeing that person doing that chart when they don't even know the system of what's going on,
Yeah. And these are all the people we met, the where we were, the machine. This is what it looks like.
This is a great article, guys.
Yeah. I mean, it has everything.
And you can see this is the area right where I went to in Sao Paulo. Very, very efficient. And I checked all these tally sheets. They were all zeroed out. I went from room to room to room. There was no internet connected to the machines. And those numbers are counted right there. They're counted at the same place they are cast. Hey, our friends from the favela.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see how it is in the favela right there. These are the favelas. She took pictures inside. A lot more congested, a little bit longer of waits. That's why the numbers came in early for Lula, for Bolsonaro, as expected. And if you understand the system, you understand why. And it shouldn't be manipulated. And if we believe in national sovereignty, right? If you're a Trump supporter, a conservative, a patriot, and you believe in national sovereignty, if you believe it at home, you better believe it abroad, because you're hypocritical if you're not supporting the people's will, the people's vote. And that's something we take away from people all the time.
Yeah, and they were stopping, and they were trying to stop, people from voting, and that's ridiculous. And somebody said, "Oh, that's good because Lula's a globalist." I'm like, "Yeah, but even if you thought Lula was a globalist, you can't do that."
Yeah.
Because then you're going to foul when you can't support voter suppression. That it completely invalidates everything you say. If you're going to support voter, it doesn't matter. Like that, I said the same thing when it came to Trump. People were justifying election interference because it was Trump, and you can't do that because then somebody else will do it, and it's just lacking integrity. It's lacking a backbone. It's complete bullshit. You don't do that just because you don't like the candidate. You don't do that. It's just so low.
And the areas of concern, and that what we have referred to for a while as the front of the house, because we were coming from the restaurant business. This is the suppression tactics that we do see in the United States in certain areas where local officials will suppress the vote to try to maintain power, mainly suppress people of color or minorities in an area which their grassroots movement can eventually take over an establishment candidate. You will see that in the United States. And that's the one thing we saw similar with the United States and Brazil, was that some cheating in the front of the house. And by the way, I just want to put this up. Lula's a globalist. Okay. What about Bolsonaro? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We said this. If you're going to support the farmer in the Netherlands, why aren't you going to support the farmer in Brazil? And here it is, Davos 2019, special address by Jair Bolsonaro. Special address by Bolsonaro, president of Brazil, at the World Economic Forum. Bolsonaro speaks at Davos. Bolsonaro speaks at the WEF. Bolsonaro special address by, you know what I'm saying? Nobody talks about Bolsonaro's relationship too. And I'm not saying that he's completely entrenched, but if you're going to do the same thing to Lula, you know, I mean, it seems very, very hypocritical if you're just going to talk about one side's globalism, about not the other side's, including the multinational corporations that were brought on in. Fam, we're going to get on out of here for the day. That's it, guys.
Wait,
go ahead.
Hold on. There is the Vladimir Putin thing.
Okay, all right. Well,
there's also a.
Yeah, I got more if you want it. Yeah, I thought you had to get out of here, but hell, let me put it up.
I mean,
no.
Yeah, just quickly. It's just a picture.
Good. There it is. Put it up for you.
Well, that's Lula and Chavez, but if you just scroll down,
there's
Can you make that bigger? Can you just, because I want to read what Putin said, because Putin said. So my whole point is I can pull up pictures of anybody, right? I can pull up pictures of anybody with somebody else. Vladimir Putin sent a message to congratulate Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva on winning the presidential election in Brazil. The message reads, in part, the result of the election has reaffirmed your high political prestige. I hope that by working together, we will ensure the further development of Why does it do that? Why does it keep doing that?
I don't know.
It's so annoying. I don't know why it's.
Sorry, fam. It's, yeah. It won't.
It's not that here. Constructive Russian-Brazilian cooperation in all spheres.
You know what I can do? Maybe let me see if I can. If I could. No, it's still not. Let me do it. It's still not. I don't know.
Just go to the next one. The next one.
Got it.
So this is what Lula said regarding Russia, Ukraine. And he said this live when we were there, actually. He said, the only position that interests Brazil on the issue of Ukraine and Russia is peace. Wartime is destruction time. The world needs peace, taking care of the climate issue and ending hunger. So basically taking a position of neutrality, saying peace. He also was reportedly against sending weapons to Ukraine because of that position of peace. He doesn't agree with that. So to me, again, I'm not saying that he's, again, this sort of revolutionary guy that's going to go and like literally light everything on fire. But I don't think he's just going to do whatever the United States wants him to do. And I don't see it. I'm not seeing that. I think he's going to walk that fine line where he is going to give concessions, and then he is also going to do things for Brazil. And that's, I think, what Brazil is going to do. And he might not be able to do as much as he would like because of the way the government is structured. So